Have you ever found yourself standing at the crossroads of temptation and conscience, where one decision could change everything? In today's video, we're going to explore how these moments, no matter how small or intense, shape who we are and where we go next. This isn't just a story, it's a reflection of the choices we make when no one is watching. Stick with us until the end, because what you learn today might just change the way you see yourself and the decisions you make moving forward. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I encourage you to click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on today's topic. If you enjoy the content, please comment 1 below. If it doesn't resonate with you, leave a 0. Your feedback is crucial as it helps me create better videos that align with your interests. Now, let's get started. In the quiet of my room, the stillness was interrupted only by the sound of water running as my uncle took a shower. I sat there, feeling an odd sensation begin to stir deep within me, a familiar, fluttering tingle in my stomach. But this wasn't the kind of tingling one would expect from innocent teenage nerves. No, this was different, something darker. It was an intense urge, a need I couldn't quite place at first, until it hit me, the bathroom. What I didn't anticipate was stumbling upon my uncle showering when I entered. I froze for a split second, my mind racing, battling a whirlwind of thoughts. What would I do next? The choices flashed before me, but I found myself gravitating toward the most perverse one. As I left the bathroom, my heart thumped erratically in my chest, and I could feel the pull of something forbidden. Wicked thoughts flooded my mind, playful in their sinfulness, and I couldn't help but smirk as my hands itched with a desire to act on these impulses. The thought of my uncle lingered in the air, as if beckoning me closer to a line I knew I shouldn't cross. I glanced around the house. My mother and sister were fast asleep, blissfully unaware of the tumultuous storm brewing inside me. I tiptoed toward the stairs that led to their rooms, my steps soft but deliberate. I needed to make sure they remained asleep. Each closed door I passed felt like a test, a barrier between my conscience and my desires. I peered into my mother's room, dark and undisturbed. A wave of dread washed over me at the mere thought of her catching me in the act, but that only fueled my excitement. My sister's room was next. I turned the doorknob ever so slowly, the quiet click resonating through the silence. Darkness enveloped the room, save for the faint glow of her nightlight. She lay there, peaceful and unaware. A nervous giggle slipped from my lips as the enormity of what I was about to do began to dawn on me. Excitement and fear wrestled within me, tightening my chest. What was I thinking? I shut the door gently, returning to the hallway, every nerve ending alive with anticipation. Descending the stairs, I was overwhelmed by the enormity of what I intended to do. Ideas swirled in my head, some innocent, some downright wicked. My uncle was still in the shower, and I had time to plan. The room I was in would be perfect, a setting ripe for whatever twisted game my mind was conjuring. I sat down, waiting, heart pounding in my ears. Every sound seemed amplified, and the stillness around me only heightened my inner chaos. I could hear the water stop, and my pulse quickened. The bathroom door creaked open, and there he was, droplets of water sliding down his skin, his hair slick and wet. "Sorry, Uncle," I blurted out, my face burning with embarrassment as I tried to play it cool. But my cheeks betrayed me, flushed red with both shame and thrill. He stopped in his tracks, his brows furrowing in confusion. "What are you doing up at this hour?" His voice was laced with suspicion, though there was a playful undertone as he began to dry his hair with a towel. "I couldn't sleep," I lied smoothly, letting my lips curve into a mischievous smile. Then I heard some noises and wanted to check. My heart raced as the lie rolled off my tongue, my mind already spinning with the possibilities of what could happen next. His eyes narrowed as if he sensed something was off, but he played along. "Noises?" he asked, still curious. "What kind of noises?" The intensity between us crackled like electricity. "I thought it might be a burglar," I said with a nervous laugh. adding a flirtatious edge to my tone that I knew he wouldn't miss. "But it's just you." He stepped closer, slowly, his eyes scanning me in a way that made my stomach flip. "And now what, Miss Detective?" His voice dripped with amusement, as if testing how far I was willing to take this game. I fidgeted with the hem of my shirt, pretending to be nervous, but deep down, I was reveling in every second. "I thought we could play a game," I whispered, my voice barely audible but full of intent. It wasn't just any game I was offering, and I made sure my smirk told him that. His eyebrow arched, and I could see the gears turning in his head as he processed the situation. "A game," he repeated, his voice lower now, testing the waters. I nodded, the tension between us so thick it was almost suffocating. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks as my nerves bubbled over into something else: desire. "Do you dare?" I teased, my voice soft but steady, a challenge thrown into the space between us. His silence stretched out for what felt like an eternity, but when he finally spoke, the glint in his eyes told me everything. "All right," he said, stepping even closer, his smile mirroring mine. "Let's play." His words hung in the air, heavy with promise, as I realized that whatever game I had just started was about to spiral into something far beyond my control. The room was charged with an almost unbearable tension, each glance between us laden with unspoken challenges and tantalizing promises. As we walked toward my room, our nervous laughter echoed softly in the silence, the excitement mingling with a lingering fear, like adrenaline surging through our veins from the sheer thrill of crossing a forbidden line. The boundaries of right and wrong seemed to blur with each step we took. When we entered the room, the air felt thicker, almost suffocating, filled with the weight of what was about to unfold. We sat close, closer than we had ever been before, our smiles betraying the mutual understanding that something irreversible was about to happen. The distance between us evaporated, and I could feel the heat radiating from his skin, his breath mingling with mine in a way that sent shivers down my spine. I leaned in slightly, my voice barely above a whisper. "You've got guts." My heart pounded wildly, threatening to burst out of my chest with each second that passed. His eyes twinkled mischievously, and he gave me a knowing smile, a silent acknowledgement that we were both playing the same dangerous game. The air in the room grew heavier, thick with desire and expectation. Every second felt like an eternity as the tension built, neither of us daring to make the first move. My hands trembled, my body temperature rising, every nerve tingling with anticipation. The house seemed to fade into the background, the silence only broken by the rapid beating of my heart, a rhythm only we could hear. His voice, low and full of mischief, snapped me out of my thoughts. "Do you have guts?" he asked, his tone sending a fresh wave of excitement coursing through my veins. The closeness between us was electric. His breath, warm and intoxicating, brushed against my lips, and the weight of the moment consumed me entirely. The thin space between us felt like a barrier that needed to be shattered. His gaze locked onto mine, a look so intense it made my heart race even faster. Then, slowly, deliberately, he leaned in. The first touch was hesitant, almost delicate, but it quickly turned into something deeper, more passionate. It was as if we had been holding back for so long, and now, in this moment, we were finally free to let go. If you are still watching this video, and find these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Our lips met, and it was as if every hidden emotion burst to the surface. I clung to him, desperate for the connection, while his arms wrapped around me, holding me tightly as if protecting me from the weight of what we were doing while simultaneously craving me with the same intensity one felt for him. In that instant, every boundary, every moral line dissolved into the heat of the moment. Time no longer existed. There was only the here and now, the feeling of his body pressed against mine, the intoxicating thrill of finally giving in to what had been simmering between us for so long. When it was all over, we pulled away, breathing heavily, our bodies still buzzing from the intensity of it all. We looked at each other with a mix of shock and complicity, fully aware of the forbidden line we had just crossed. "I think we should," I started, but the words died in my throat, my emotions too overwhelming to put into words. He nodded, his eyes softening as if he understood exactly what I was trying to say. "Yes, I think we should leave it here for tonight," he said, his voice calm but filled with the same whirlwind of emotions that had taken hold of me. His smile was reassuring, a silent promise that everything would somehow be okay. He left my room quietly, and I stayed behind, straightening the bed, my mind racing with a million thoughts. What had we just done? And yet, despite the guilt creeping in, there was a part of me that couldn't deny the thrill of it all. This was just the beginning, I knew it. We had crossed a line that couldn't be undone, and now, an unspoken bond had been formed between us, one that no one else would ever know. If you want to uncover more details of what truly happened that night, I invite you to join the WhatsApp and Telegram links in the video description. Soon, everything will be revealed there. For me, that night was nothing short of sensational, a secret adventure shared only between my uncle and me. It was our first of many, a moment we had both longed for but had never dared to act upon, until now. There are moments in life that we keep locked away, hidden from the world, moments that haunt us with their intensity and excitement. I've held this story inside for so long, replaying it over and over in my mind, savoring every thrilling detail. The memories of that night are etched deep within me, a mix of exhilaration and forbidden desire. As I lay in bed, I remember how our eyes met across the room, and in that instant, an unspoken connection ignited between us, a spark that I had secretly longed for but never dared to admit. The tension had been building for what felt like an eternity, and when the moment finally came, it was as if we had crossed into uncharted territory, a space neither of us thought we would ever venture into. Fear flickered inside me at first, an undeniable pang of hesitation, but it was quickly overshadowed by the intoxicating thrill of the unknown. We had crossed a line, a boundary society told us should never be touched, but in that moment, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. It was exciting, raw, and undeniable. I could sense that we both felt it, the magnetic pull drawing us together, and once we gave in, there was no going back. We had become part of something larger, something far beyond simple attraction. As I recount this to you now, my heart races with the same mixture of trepidation and desire that I felt that night. And yet, I can't help but wonder, would you have done the same? Would you have dared to follow your deepest impulses, knowing full well the consequences could be disastrous? What do you think happened that night? What do you think of what I did with my uncle? I know it's a controversial question, maybe even a shocking one for some, but I'm a woman who believes in living fully, in experiencing life without being chained to the judgments of others. We only live once, right? Should I be ashamed for embracing my desires, or should I revel in the freedom of seizing the moment, regardless of what others may think? There's a part of me that still questions if it was the right thing to do. In the heat of that moment, everything felt so powerful, so necessary. It was as if we were swept up in a whirlwind, a storm of emotions that couldn't be contained. But now, with time and reflection, I find myself asking, did I make the right choice? Was I brave, or was I reckless? I'm curious, what would you do? Would you have the courage to cross a line so dangerously close to home, or do you believe that some boundaries should remain untouched forever? For me, that night was unforgettable, a whirlwind of passion and excitement. It was the kind of night where you surrender to your emotions and allow yourself to get lost in the heat of the moment, where nothing else matters but the intense pleasure of the experience. I know that for many, what I did may seem unthinkable, perhaps even repulsive. But in that instant, nothing else mattered. It was about living in the now, about seizing a moment of wild abandon that may never come again. I understand that some will judge me, maybe even condemn me for what happened. They may call it a mistake, an act of sin, or a dangerous impulse. But I ask you, what is life without a little risk? What is life without indulging in our deepest desires, even if they lead us to unexpected places? Living in fear of what others think only holds us captive, stopping us from truly discovering who we are. Sometimes, the paths we take in the heat of desire reveal more about ourselves than we ever thought possible. So, what do you think? Would you have dared to follow your desires, or do you believe there are some lines that should never be crossed? So, what have you learned from this story so far? Life is full of moments where we're tested, and it's not just about the choices we make, but what we take away from those experiences. Comment below on one thing you've learned and how you plan to bring it into practice in your own life. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more thought-provoking content.